All right, welcome everyone. I call this meeting to order for the Corporation of Township of Puslinch on September 28th, 2022. I believe Councillor Bailey, you go first. We'll start with a roll call. Councillor Bailey.
I'm present.
Councillor Balmer.
Here.
Councillor Goida.
Present.
And Councillor Spoulos.
Present.
Just before starting our moment of reflection, I just want to make council aware that our former fire chief, the retired Doug Smith, passed away yesterday. So during the moment of reflection, my thoughts will be with the Smith family. They're going through a difficult time right now. So I will start that moment of reflection right now. Okay, that concludes the moment of reflection. Okay, resolution for the confirmation of the agenda, please, Ms. White-Fox.
The council approves the September 28th, 2022 agenda and addendum as circulated, and that council approves the addition to the agenda as follows. Consent items 6.1.4 questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff.
You're the mover for that, please. Councillor Spoulos, seconded by Councillor Goida. Any comments or questions? All right, all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
and Councillor Spoulos.
In favor.
All right, do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest today?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Balmer,
Item 6, I believe it's 6.3.3. There's a staff report regarding the returning of interest earned on security deposits for Sunrise Therapeutic Riding Center. They list me as a advisor to Sunrise, and as such, I think anybody would consider me to be a friend of Sunrise, and our code of conduct suggests that we can't act on our friend's behalf. So thank you.
can I correct you? Is it 9?
Yes, you're right, 9.3.3.
Am I back?
Yes, you are, Mr. Mayor.
You heard me cuss, then I apologize. Councillor Balmer, is it 9.3.3?
Yes, it
Not
is. I'm
6
sorry. Yeah, that's correct.
If that happens again, I might have to take a moment and connect to my phone. And Councillor Goida, you had your hand up as well.
Yes, I also, for item 9.3.3, as a member of the Board of Directors for Sunrise, I will not participate in discussion due to conflict of interest. And also item 9.3.5, which is regarding the street renaming request for Timberwalk Trail. My employer, who is also an immediate relative, owns 2 properties on that road and therefore results in a pecuniary interest. So I will not participate in that discussion either.
Okay, thank you, councillors. All right, Ms. White-Fox, you have a resolution for, well, it's 10:05. All right, I believe we're going to do the delegations. Ms. White-Fox, you're going to have to help me with this one because it's my understanding that a bunch of the delegations have now opted not to present to council. So the list is now not as accurate. But what I will say to the delegates, I'm hoping they're in the gallery, is that we have an expectation of decorum. Any, abusive behavior or any, unparliamentary discussions will be muted by the clerk or on my request or at their discretion. The times for the people that will be presenting will be kept at 10 minutes maximum. Also, if there is a duplication of presentation, we will likely interject that in, because council has already heard those concerns from previous delegations. So we want to get through this as quickly as possible so we can deal with the item at hand. And I would remind council that we'll keep our discussion to the topic for the appropriate time in the agenda, which I don't feel is a concern, but I just wanted to remind you. And with the amount of delegations, I will probably move pretty quickly. If I'm not going to go around to each councillor and ask if they have clarification or comments. I'll just hope that you can interject if you need if you have a clarification. You can either use the raise your hand icon on the bottom of your screen or just wave at me. I'll let you get some clarification beyond that. Let's just listen to the delegations and deal with the street renaming at the appropriate place in the agenda. Ms. Whitefox, so yeah, my list, I don't know if you just want to go through them, you know, who's here, or how do you want to proceed now that we don't have all the delegations attending?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. If you would like to start with Mr. Wayne Madden's delegation, his was in addition to the agenda through the addendum, but it is unrelated to the Swastika Trail renaming and is related to the concession one groundwater concerns on his property.
Yes, that would work well. It's the first one on the list, so. I guess while Ms. Whitefox is moving Mr. Madden over, there was a lot of delegation requests sent in with comments included in those delegation requests. We're not going to go and read those verbatim since the people are not attending, but they are part of the public record and they're viewable. And I'm sure council has reviewed those comments, as well as the written delegations that were submitted. We're not going to be reading them for the council's indulgence. So they're available in the package.
Mr. Chair, just double checking, it looks like Mr. Madden's delegation is a written delegation, so he's provided just his written summary as well as some photos there for council, so he's not in attendance today.
Okay, well then we'll just ask council if they have any comments or concerns around Mr. Madden's delegation. I'll maybe go in order. Councillor Spillis. Actually, no, never mind. I what I said earlier. Councillor Spillis.
Yes, this item was brought up at the May 25th council meeting, and council at that time directed staff to forward the submission to the pit operator for review and response and requested that Lafarge provide annual reports for the past 2 years in order to be reviewed by township hydrogeologist. And the staff was to provide Mr. Madden with a link to the township's modern data. I just wondered if staff could update us on where we stand on these matters.
Certainly, Councillor Sapoulis. So staff have provided the data to Mr. Madden and also copied our hydrogeologist on the correspondence as well, and had Mr. Denhode take a look at what was going on. Unfortunately, without the annual monitoring data from Lafarge, it's very difficult to provide any sort of meaningful response. So staff did reach out to Lafarge to request their annual monitoring data or any information that they'd be willing to share. Unfortunately, it was not provided to the township. So at this time, the township has put in a request to the province just through the Freedom of Information Act to get access to that data. Since then, we've been told that there will be an extension by the province while they work with the third party to determine if they're going to release that information to us.
Great, thank you very much.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just to follow up on that, if we don't get that information, I think we've got a major problem, because I recall several years ago, there was a coordinated monitoring program put in place down there because of concerns about holes in the data. And I think if we don't get information from the province, we should go back and look at what was made available as part of that coordinated monitoring program. And perhaps some of the data, older data is there and was released as part of that process, and use the same process again to fill in the blanks in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I have a comment. Going forward with any new applications or changes to the licenses, it's probably important that the township put as a condition of the approval of the license that monitoring data be provided at the request of the township. The FOI process, while it works, it's, I'm sure Ms. White Fox can attest to this, is a very slow process between if they, you know, if the information is going to be released and there's appeal periods and there's appeals and they go through, then it goes through mediation. So I would like staff to consider, you know, we have one application before us for another operator, that one of our conditions that we put on all future gravel pits expansions and site plan changes is that we get that monitoring. That monitoring data must or shall be provided upon request of the township. Any thoughts on that, council? Are you comfortable with that conversation, or at least staff bring it back at the appropriate time? Can you just make a note of that, Mr. CAO?
Absolutely.
Any further comments from councilors? Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, I'm just relating this a little bit to the Roselle Pit sort of action that happened down there, where we had a coordinated meeting with some of the neighbors and the GRCA and the ministry and the pit operator. I'm wondering if there's any opportunity to try to get something like that going over in this neck of the woods. Does staff have any comment on that?
I might add to that. So at AMO, Minister Smith mentioned that, you know, he wanted us to go through the proper channels prior to, you know, going straight to the minister. Have we engaged the local rep for MNRF on this file and mentioned our concerns on the low water? And maybe time is of the essence. Maybe we don't have the luxury to wait until the FOI. I think that's where Councillor Bailey is going with this, and engage the local representative of the MNR and say, we need you to investigate. Have we done any of that yet on this file, Mr. CAO?
I believe that Mr. Madden, through conversation with him, has been actively engaged with the local representatives from the MNR. And the township has seen those correspondence. So the township could certainly reach out as well. But just with the FOI request that was put in, it was that was made because it looked as though there wasn't going to be any response from the MNR on this. So that's why staff went the FOI route, but we can certainly send something additionally to the local rep as well.
We need a motion. I could ask one of the councillors to make a motion to pen a letter to the local MNR representative requesting they investigate this low water concern, and then word it so that the reason why we're asking them is because we haven't been provided the monitoring data for our own consultant to review. So essentially saying, well, if they won't provide the data, here you go, ministry, go check this out, because we haven't been able to review it to see if there's a concern, hoping that the ministry would then say to Lafarge, give them the info expediently. Any appetite for that from council? I'm looking at you, Councillor Spoulos.
I was going to suggest that we ask staff to bring forward the report, and we can properly discuss the matter and decide the next steps. Right now, there's a lot of ideas floating. So my motion is that staff report to council at the next opportune time with an update of where we stand with respect to the May 25th resolution and any further additional information and steps to take to move forward.
That works for me. Can I get a seconder for that, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Bailey. All right, comments, Councillor Bailey.
No further comments on that. I do have a question to you regarding, just wondering if it's appropriate to be asking Tatmo to be putting this on their kind of action plan to be, helping get this information through the work with Tatmo.
So do you mean asking Tatmo to deal with this one
No.
concern specifically, or just the monitoring data?
Like on a more general term, encouraging the sharing of data and helping get that out there.
We could include in the motion that Puslinch correspond with TAC, put it in their work plan review. TAMO's going to go through their top 5 work plan, and TAMO executive could consider that as one of the items as something they work towards. Then I could just take it back personally, or if you want to include it in the motion, I'm comfortable with that as well.
I think just taking it back would be appropriate.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. Get some more weight behind it. Okay, any comments to the motions on the floor for the staff to report back? Councillor Ballmer?
I'm in favor, no comments.
Okay, Councillor Goyda?
I'm in favor.
Okay, Councillor Spoulos?
In favor.
And Councillor Bailey, I didn't get you're in favor, but
I was in favor. Yeah.
okay. And so Ms. White Fox, we have a resolution to receive that written delegation.
Yes, it's to receive it for information.
I get a mover for that, please. Councillor Spoulos, second by Councillor Ballmer. All in favor? Councillor Bailey?
In favor.
Councillor Ballmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goyda?
In favor.
And Councillor Spoulos.
In favor.
All right. Okay, Ms. White Fox, the next delegation, please.
Certainly. And just a question, Mr. Chair, in terms of receiving the delegation request related to the Swastika Trail renaming, is this something you'd like to do in one resolution of council and move through them that way, or would you prefer to have a resolution to receive each individual?
I would like to receive 7.2 individually. And then if there's any other delegations that are of the opposite opinion, then they be separated. So we have the yays and the nays separated if there are such a thing, and then the landowner separated. So we'll do 7.2, and I believe the rest will be all in one resolution. Does that make sense?
It does. 7.2 and 7.3 are not in attendance at the meeting today. So that's the delegation by Mr. Paul Wazinski and the delegation by Miss Lori Leroux. Those 2 individuals have indicated that their delegation is to be written. They won't be speaking to it. So I'm not sure how you'd like, if those should be included just with the written delegations, or if you'd like those separated out.
I'd like those 2 separated out. Last time they spoke to me, they informed me they were going to attend, but so yes, we'll receive the 7.2, 7.3 as one, and then I'll leave it to your discretion on the remainder.
Okay, so we do have Miss Alexis Van Et, sorry if I've mispronounced your name, a verbal delegation that's ready for 11 or 10:15 a.m. She's in attendance. So would you like to do that one first, or would you like to do the 2 written delegations, 7.2 and 7.3?
Let's do 7.2, 7.3, and then
Okay.
Then we'll move on. Yeah. All right. So resolution to receive them, please, Ms. White Fox.
The council receives the written delegations prepared by Mr. Paul Wazinski and Ms. Lori Leroux regarding the street renaming request for Swastika Trail for information.
Thank you. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Spoulos, second by Councillor Goyda. All in favor? Councillor Bailey?
In favor.
Councillor Ballmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goyda?
Favor.
And Councillor Spoulos.
In favor.
All right, now you can move the delegate over. Excuse me, please, Ms. White Fox. Welcome, Alexis.
Hello.
Hello.
Um, Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Van Ash. I wanted to speak to you all on behalf of the neighboring community that believes Swastika Trail should be renamed. I'm sure you all know the history of the swastika as used by Nazis and don't necessarily want me to rehash everything. But let me remind you that millions of people don't have the privilege of ignoring what the swastika stood for. As you know, people still alive today have lost their sisters, brothers, parents, and friends because of the hatred and atrocities fueled by the Nazis. I'm sure I don't have to remind you that the swastika was the last thing many of those people saw before being murdered. And I'm sure I also don't have to remind you of the rippling effects they had and will continue to have on their children and communities for generations. Imagine finding refuge within new communities and new countries such as Canada, only to see their government funding the placement of the word swastika in public places. The government thereby minimizing, if not supporting, the history of what it stands for. I do recognize the history of the swastika as a positive symbol in various religious traditions, such as Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism. That being said, Eurocentric religions no longer use the swastika as a symbol of hope. And the majority of people speaking within Puslinch are not coming from a Hindu or Buddhist perspective. In fact, on the Township of Puslinch website, you highlight 6 different places of worship, none of which are Hindu or Buddhist. That's because these places of worship are representative of the cultural demographic within the municipality of Puslinch. I bring this up because I recall reading in the 2017 vote that the positive history of the swastika as a symbol of hope was brought up in order to defend not changing it. To that I say, we cannot appropriate someone else's culture just because it is convenient for us to hide behind. Finally, I know the price and inconvenience is another large factor that many people are using to hide behind keeping the name. At the end of the day, I am also a taxpayer within the municipality of Puslinch, and I'm not okay with my tax dollars being spent to do repairs or print street signs with the word swastika on it. There's no reason to support such a sentiment around our community, and surely no reason why the municipality should continue to allow it to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. All right, does anybody need any further clarification? All right, Ms. Whitfox, do you have a resolution, please?
The council receives the verbal delegation by Alexis Van Esch regarding the street renaming request for Swastika Trail for information.
Can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Spoulos, seconded by Councillor Bailey. All in favor, Councillor Bailey? Oh, you're muted, but I saw you say
In
it. Councillor
favor.
Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
and Councillor Spoulos.
In favor.
All right, Ms. Whitfox, who's up?
All right, I'll just take a moment to move the delegate back and I'll check to see, the next up on our list is Cameron Shuarda. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced the name. Mr. Chair, I don't see this next delegate registered or in the attendee section yet. Perhaps we could circle back once we work through the rest of them.
Sure, let's go. Who's the next one?
So the next on the list is Elaine Zhu. Again, I'm just looking through to see if she's in attendance. We do have a long list of attendees, so I apologize as I scroll through, but if the attendees do hear their name being called, if you could just help me out and raise your hand, and I can find you just a little bit faster in the list. Mr. Chair, I don't see this delegate in attendance yet. So the next on the list is Mr. Jamie Kersner Roberts, and I believe I do see.
Can I interject?
Certainly.
Can anyone that's in the attendees that is wishing to speak, raise your hand, so then my clerk can identify those at a little more expedient pace, and then we can move through this, and she will do them in the appropriate order. Does that work? Can more than one person have their hand up in the attendees? Yeah, there we go.
So I do see, Jamie Kersner Roberts, and they're next on in the order, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. What number is that one?
So on the
14.
update, yes, on the updated list I have, we have them as the fourth, just with the amount of rescheduling that we did this morning.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Sorry.
Hi.
Welcome.
So I'm not a
Hi.
Mr., I'm a Ms. Can I talk now?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you all about this issue that has been a concern for the Jewish community for some time. It is really my pleasure and my honor to have the chance to share some thoughts about this issue with you. I want to say off the bat that I am the Director of Advocacy and Policy at the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Our Canadian office is based in Toronto. We're a leading Jewish human rights not-for-profit. We represent over 30,000 members of Canada's Jewish community, including Holocaust survivors and their families. And our mandate is to counter racism and anti-Semitism by promoting the principles of tolerance, justice, and Canadian values through advocacy and education programs for children and adults. As you all are surely aware, this back and forth over the issue of Swastika Trail has been going on for some time. We have been pleased, very honored to have had the opportunity to work with and support a number of Jewish residents of your community, residents whose family come from a background of survivorship of the genocide in Europe, in their effort to have this issue addressed. We are so encouraged, so grateful to municipal staff for having looked into this issue more deeply, to your council for adopting a naming policy and giving your staff this mandate to investigate this matter more deeply, and to look in specifically to the matter of what the impact of this street name is on your community, on the residents of your community, and on perceptions of your community. And I'm here today, as will be a surprise to you, to urge you to express my hope that you will support the recommendations put forward by staff to change the name of Swastika Trail out of respect for the members of your community for whom this causes pain. As you know, the swastika was adopted as the official emblem of the Nazi Party to represent German nationalism and the purity of the so-called Aryan race. And this symbol has become for Jews, as well as other groups persecuted by the Nazis, the ultimate symbol of horror, of mass murder, of crimes against humanity. And it's so evocative, this symbol of genocide, that not only is this symbol banned in most Western countries, You may be interested to learn that the Canadian Parliament has already had a number of consultations at the Ministry of Heritage in consideration of banning the symbol in Canada as well. Not only does this symbol serve as the ugliest possible symbol of atrocities committed by the Nazis and collaborators against civilians, this symbol also represents an enemy regime that took the lives of 45,000 of our Canadian soldiers who so courageously crossed the ocean to a foreign land to stand up for our freedoms. It seems to me such a profound disrespect to our heroes, our Canadian heroes who sacrificed so much to stop the spread of Nazism and to stop Hitler, to lay their lives on the line and in many cases die to defend our freedoms, and then have a street in our country named after the symbol of the enemy. This issue has remained a sore point for years, for decades, for countless residents, for the Jewish community, both in the municipality and outside of it. I hope that you will agree that this has gone on long enough, that it's time for us all to look forward, move on, and I urge you to, again, to support your staff in their recommendation to change the name of Swastika Trail. Thank you again so much for this opportunity to speak to you today.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Does council need any clarification from the delegate? Ms. Whitefox, you have a resolution, please?
The council receives the verbal delegation by Jamie Kersner Roberts regarding the street renaming request for Swastika Trail for information.
Okay, mover for that, please. Need somebody new other than Councillor Spools.
I'll move.
Councillor Ballmer, seconded by Councillor Bailey. All in favor, Councillor Bailey?
In favor.
Councillor Ballmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goida?
In favor.
Councillor Spools?
In favor.
Mr. Chair, our next delegate is Brittany Bichetti. Again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing anyone's names.
Welcome, Brittany.
Hi,
How are you doing?
good.
Good, the floor is yours.
Okay, before I begin, I would just like to preface my time appreciating those on the street that have voted to change the name in the past, and also council members that continue to allow us to bring forth the issue. I'm reading a letter written on behalf of my mother, Marlene Benesh, and it concerned, yeah, I'll just start. To whom it may concern, I'm writing to you on behalf of the general Cambridge public. I own a place on Puslynch Lake, and so I'm very invested in the outcome of this meeting. On September 15th, I went to a house showing on Swastika Trail in hopes of moving there. I'm writing to point out a flaw within the Swastika Trail name change process you've undertaken so far. I'm of the opinion that, as policymakers, your actions must be completely independent from any votes cast by the local residents. The reason being, this group comes with an incredible selection bias. Selection bias is a term used to describe an error in choosing individuals to take part in a study. Ideally, the subjects in a study should be very similar to the larger population from which they are drawn. As I walked through 43 Swastika Trail, to me it felt like home. A beautiful house on the lake. I could imagine my son cooking on the deck, my girls curled up by the fire, while my sister sat in the hot tub. I was ready to make an offer, except for one glaringly obvious, disgusting problem: the street name. But I thought to myself, Well, if I move in, I'll just put in the work to change it. Shouldn't be too hard, right? In case you missed that, that's some foreshadowing to Randy Guzar's struggles here. As we were standing out front with my real estate agent, chatting about the house, she told me that it was going to council September 28th. I asked, what's the likelihood that it'll pass? With that, she pulled out the results from the 2017 vote. The local residents association voted 25 to 20 against changing the name. And that's when it hit me. I cannot place an offer on this house. The people that live here either voted to keep the name change because of heritage or felt neutral enough about the street name to overlook racist overtones when purchasing. Circling back to selection bias, the residents on this street are either complacent and neutral towards racism in our society or actively engage in enabling hateful symbols to have a place in modern Canada. The population of Canada that is disgusted and appalled by the street name are not found within your resident vote because we never bought the house in the first place. One way to correct sample selection bias is to assign weights to misrepresented subgroups in order to statistically correct the bias. With this, I ask, if you went on any other street in Cambridge and took a vote whether Swastika Trail should be renamed, what do you think the answer would be? Now, granted, I recognize this isn't a totally fair question because those folks would not need to go through the work required to change the documents. But I think you know as well as I do, the general Cambridge public would most likely answer change it. When I went to tell my banker to cancel the pre-approval mortgage process, his response was, I saw that coming, couldn't handle the name. And quite frankly, he was right. When I envisioned having my driver's license with that address, I really couldn't stomach it. As policymakers, I urge you not to be swayed by a group of neutral or blatantly racist people. The swastika is not a heritage we need to celebrate. Arguing that it is part of our history because it used to be a symbol of hope is honestly ridiculous. History changes context. Just this summer, Toronto City Council voted to rename Dundas Street, citing his role in delaying the abolition of the slave trade. Ryerson University changed its name to make reparations with the Indigenous community. These changes are affecting thousands of people. The 25 families on Swastika Trail would not be unique in their inconvenience. It should not matter whether the residents vote to keep the name. These changes happen as a recognition of systemic racism and are a step towards reconciliation. It's time for Swastika Trail to be left in history, even if the residents on the street are still stuck in the past. Regards, Marlene Van Ness.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. I have concerns with the letter labeling some of our residents blatantly racist down there.
Sure.
I think that's a pretty unfair association you're putting to the people there. So I don't agree with that statement whatsoever. So it's just a comment to you with your letter, and I'll just move on from that. Okay. Any clarification from council? Okay, community resolution, receive that one, please, Ms. White Fox.
The council receives a verbal delegation by Brittany Bichetti regarding the street renaming request for Swastika Trail for information.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please?
I'll move again if you like.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Spillis. All right, all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
Councillor Palmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
and Councillor Spillis.
In favor.
All right, our next one, please, Ms. White Fox.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, I'm just looking through the list. We have two others that are registered to speak, and I'm not sure I see either here.
I see Mr. Gazar with his hand up. Is he registered?
Yes, he is. I have him at the end of the list, so I was looking for Megan Latham or Mustafa Khalil. I don't see any of those individuals. Also, so I guess we can move to Mr. Gazar.
Sure. Welcome, Randy.
There. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Mayor Sealy and members of council and Ms. Hoyt Fox. I wanted you to know that I'm grateful this morning for the opportunity to comment on the municipality's ongoing review of Swastika Trail as it relates to the new. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Voices working there.
There we are. Sorry. No, she has to, you have to shut yours off, Audrey. Close out the program, dear. Hello? There. That's better. Let me start again. Good morning, Mr. Mayor Sealy, members of council, and Ms. Hoyt Fox. I'm grateful this morning for the opportunity to comment on the municipality's ongoing review of Swastika Trail as it relates to the municipal street naming policy. Some of you are aware, of course, that for many years now, my friends, neighbors, and family, along with community members, both near and far, have advocated for our township to rename Swastika Trail. And we are certainly encouraged by council's current review of the name, along with the introduction of the street naming policy. It is our hope that today we can retire the street name, which has been the cause of much hurt and division within our community. The name Swastika is not in compliance with the policy. We discussed this in our application rationale to the municipality. A written report was also submitted by staff that echoed that rationale. And a third report from the Canadian Anti-Hate Network has also been received by township. All three reports converge into a raw, single, compelling statement. The swastika is and remains the most universally recognized hate symbol in Canada. Let me say that again. The swastika is and remains the most universally recognized hate symbol in Canada. In fact, it is the go-to symbol of choice for haters, hate groups, and hate crimes. Simply put, it does not comply with the municipal's street naming policy, which prohibits discriminatory or derogatory names or names that have a commonly acknowledged alternate negative or offensive meaning. Council members, as Canada continues to experience annual increases in reported hate crimes, it is critical that our community should not be seen as supportive of racism through indifference to such an odious symbol of hate. On a personal note, I wanted to let you know that I'm grateful to the councilors and municipal staff members who have spent energy, time, and intelligence resulting in an agreed upon policy that will help make Pushlints a more welcoming, safer, and inclusive community. I appreciate all staff members and council members who have listened to our request to rename Swastika Trail and understood the concerns of myself, neighbors, family, and friends. I think it's reasonable to say that the township staff report fairly and accurately notes that the name does not comply with our standards and is no longer an acceptable or appropriate name for an area in our town. I'd also like councilors to know that my father was one of many Canadians who risked their lives to fight the Nazi regime and end their genocidal reign. Like many other young men at the time, my father lied about his age to join the Canadian Armed Forces to fight for our Canada. He was 17. I ask that you imagine my father, a 17-year-old teenager, flown to Italy, a parachute strapped to his back, and a rifle at hand, frightened, fighting in the trenches of a war-torn Europe. Needless to say, my father did not come home the same man. I ask that you consider his service. I ask that you think about the many who paid the ultimate sacrifice in World War II when you make your decision today. By renaming the street, you will demonstrate your care for the many members of our community. including some of our neighbors whose families were murdered in the Holocaust or who continue to face discrimination in their lives. I do truly hope that you will offer your voice to so many in our community and vote to support the renaming of Swastika Trail. Thank you very much, council members, for considering our request and for a few moments of your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Gazar. Any clarification, comments from, or questions from council? All right, Ms. White Fox, want to read the resolution, please?
The council receives the verbal delegation by Randy Guzar regarding the street renaming request for Swastika Trail for information.
Are you gonna move it for that, please? Councillor Goida, seconded by Councillor Balmer. All in favor, Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
and Councillor Spools.
In favor?
All right, Ms. White Fox, is there any other delegates that have requested to speak that have joined us last minute? See James Yang with his hand up. Is he a registered speaker?
I don't believe James Yang is a registered speaker. I'm just double checking. Mr. Chair, unless Mr. Yang has registered with his name and there's somebody else that's wanting to speak that is registered, I don't see Mr. Yang on the list.
Can you ask Mr. Yang if they happen to be one of the other registered members to speak and the name is just displaying incorrectly?
Yep, certainly. I'll Mr. Yang, you have permissions to talk. If you could just confirm if you've just displayed your name and it's actually someone else who has registered to speak.
Yeah, sorry. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Amazing. I am here to speak on behalf of.
No, hold on, Mr. Yang, time out.
Mhm.
You have to be a registered delegate to speak. I'm just wanting to confirm whether your name is displayed properly or not.
Oh, yeah, my name is displayed properly.
Okay, Ms. White Fox. Thank you. So procedurally, they have to register to speak to address council, correct, Ms. White Fox?
Yes, so our procedural bylaw asks everyone to register. Council can approve a delegation with a majority vote, but otherwise they do need to be registered in advance.
Council, do we need to hear more delegations on this, or would you prefer to proceed through the agenda so we can deal with the topic later? I'll say that, Councillor Spools.
Yes, Mr. Yang started by saying he was speaking on behalf of somebody. If he is speaking on behalf of a registered delegate, then I don't have a problem with that.
Is that not hearsay? I'm not sure if we can hear. I mean, the one delegation read a letter. I need some direction from staff on that one.
I think it would be council's discretion through a vote if you'd like to hear Mr. Yang as a delegate.
It's the last one. I would entertain this last individual because they've had their hand up for a while, but I don't want to encourage the behavior of more people that didn't register to be brought in. So I would indulge Mr. Yang, specifically if it's new information. If it's more just their opinion on whether they support the policy or not, it could probably be a fairly short delegation. So Ms. White Fox, we'll move him over. We'll get clarity on whether he's representing somebody that did register to speak. Even if not, it'll be the last one.
Mr. Chair, if we could just get that motion moved and seconded so we could have a vote on it for the record, please.
I will move that Mr. Yang be enabled to speak as the last delegation.
Seconder, please.
Second it.
Second, Councillor Bailey, all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Schools.
In favor.
All right, Ms. Whitewash, you can move Mr. Yang back over, please. Okay, welcome back, Mr. Yang. You can begin when you feel comfortable.
Hi.
Or Mr. Yang. Oh, it's
I just want to check that I am clearly audible and that everyone can hear me.
yes.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, so my name is James. I'm speaking on behalf of Mustafa. I wanted to address possible concerns from the other side who might want to keep the trail's name. So because they unfortunately didn't end up showing up to speak, I can't exactly I don't know what their specific reasons are, but I have some reasons as to why they might want to keep the trail, and I wanted to address those things specifically. The first reason why I could imagine a lot of residents might want to keep the name is because that is something that is nostalgic to them. It forms or constitutes precious memories. It's something that they've had for a very long time. And change is uncomfortable. I think we can all agree that change to something that is very precious to us is uncomfortable. However, I want to note that the trail itself is going to remain the same. So like the trees, the landscape, all of the memories that you've had, playing various parts of the trail. I think the things that are most important to people's memories are going to stay the same. And while it seems very uncomfortable to alter something that we associate as precious to us, I think once the name is changed, it is unclear how much that will really bother people. It goes by a different name, but those core things that are precious to people living on that trail remain basically the same. So I think it is perhaps the case. I can't obviously speak on behalf of them because I don't know people who, I don't know the people who voted in favor of keeping the name, but it is my guess that it is very uncomfortable to change the trail name, but after it's been changed as, you know, the actual size of that impact, I don't think it's going to be that large. The other thing I wanted to address is that people might have a general, have a concern about censorship in general. So I know that we live in an era of increasing censorship and people have become concerned about the fact like how much cancel culture there is, a lack of freedom of speech, policing of speech, etc. So I wanted to address that concern as well, because I also imagine it's possible that people, that residents might be against changing the name because they see it as part of a broader political movement that aims to restrict speech. Two things I want to say on this. The first thing I want to note is that the name of a trail is not akin to free speech. So this is not someone expressing their personal or political opinions, and I don't think this also restricts the ability for people to do so. This trail is part of public infrastructure that is maintained through public taxpayer dollars. So I think that's something that's really important to remember, is that this is not about censoring someone's speech. This is about changing the name of a trail through many people, through which many residents as well people in the surrounding areas both put money to maintain, but also have to personally experience. The second thing I want to note is that censorship is not bad in all cases. I think there are many instances in which we legally support censorship. So Canadian censorship laws allow some courts and tribunals to censor on the basis of human rights. And as previous people have mentioned, I would imagine that, you know, like crimes against humanity committed in World War II and ongoing sentiments of anti-Semitism would constitute a human rights issue. We impose restrictions on what parents can legally name their child, even though we give parents, you know, for the most part, a lot of freedom and rights to choose how they want to parent. And lastly, while I won't list them, I'm sure there are a number of like really offensive slurs that nobody in this meeting nor anyone living in Cushland would be comfortable slapping on a street, trail, or street sign. So given what everyone else has said, it's a little unclear to me as to why this, why the swastika is different from a lot of other really offensive words, given how many people in this meeting have already described very personal connections to how that harms them or is used as a symbol of hate against their community, not just in terms of something that makes them feel offended or uncomfortable, but has led to actual violence, whether that's being paraded on the street, harassed, or physical violence that's been enacted against them with that symbol being used. In conclusion, I think other speakers have talked at length about both the moral implications of the trail's name as well as the personal impact. On the contrary, I'm not sure what, you know, how deep or personal those impacts are from the other side. And I think while there might be uncomfort in changing the name, that is not something that should stop us from moving forward and making the community a more safe and accessible place for everyone, so that everyone has a chance to speak appropriately, use their freedom of speech.
Okay, thank you, James. I just want to correct some misinformation in what you just delegated to council. Swastika Trail is not maintained through public funds or public workers. It's private property, and this policy will be imposing government decisions on private landowners, private property. So there's the difference. So that's all I just wanted to clarify on that. The taxpayers' money are not maintaining the road. There is an argument that the sign maybe was paid by taxpayers' money, but beyond that, it's a private road, private property. Okay, any clarification from council? Councilor Spillis?
Yes, I just want to ask the deputy, are you speaking on behalf of Mustafa Khalil?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the resolution, Ms. White Fox?
The council receives a verbal delegation by James Yang on behalf of Mustafa Khalil regarding the street renaming request for Swastika Trail for information.
You're going to move for that, please. Councilor Spillis, seconded by Councilor Goyda. All in favor? Councilor Bailey?
In favor.
Councilor Balmer?
In favor.
Councilor Goyda?
In favor.
Councilor Spillis?
In favor.
Thank you, James. Just let me know when you're ready to go on the consent agenda, Ms. White Fox.
And Mr. Chair, we do have a number of remaining written delegations, so I'm suggesting that perhaps council receives the remaining written delegations in the agenda addendum for information at this time.
Right, I forgot about that. I'm sorry. Can you just read that resolution, please?
Certainly, it's that council receive the remaining written delegations included in the council agenda addendum regarding the street renaming request for Swastika Trail for information.
You're gonna move it for that, please?
I'll move.
Councilor Goyda, seconded by Councilor Bailey. All in favor? Councilor Bailey?
In favor.
Councilor Balmer?
In favor.
Councilor Goyda?
In favor.
And Councilor Spillis?
In favor.
All right. Now the consent agenda, I believe.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to suggest that we move directly into the item of Swastika Trail renaming, because it is an item that a lot of people in the audience are waiting for, and it's immediately after the delegations.
Sure. Is there many items on the consent agenda that were being pulled out?
I'm not pulling.
That you want to discuss? Does anybody pull any consent agenda items out? Ms. White Fox, can we get the resolution for the consent agenda items, please?
That the consent agenda items listed for the September 28th, 2022 council meeting be received for information.
Can you move for that, please?
I'll move.
Councilor Balmer, second by Councilor Spillis. All in favor? Councilor Bailey?
In favor.
Councilor Balmer?
In favor.
Councilor Goyda?
In favor.
And Councilor Spillis.
In favor.
Yes, now we'll just go to, well, it's down the items a little bit, but I'm fine with that. Just remind me to go back to public meeting, Ms. White Fox. All right, I'll have Ms.
Certainly.
White Fox read the resolution for 9, where'd it go? 935. No.
934.
934. Sorry, 934.
So to get it on the table for council, it's that report ADM 2022-051 entitled Municipal Renaming Request for Swastika Trail be received.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please? Councilor Spillis, second by Councilor Goyda. All right, Councilor Bailey, you're up first.
Thank you. I'll just keep it brief. We don't need to go through a lot of stuff. I did have a comment in regards to, and I don't know if this is appropriate right now, but the number of delegations that came in for me for the last minute, and then the number that didn't show up. I'm having a little hard time with how that process went, and I'm hoping maybe we can look at that when we talk about our procedural bylaw moving ahead. It's just a little bit relevant to what we just went through. So that's just my comment to start off. In terms of the report that we received and the application in front of us, I just have three points that I just want to make comments on. And I'm just going to read out what I've kind of written in here. So although we've heard a lot of delegations today, and we know that the understanding of the word swastika has been used on the private roads since the early 1900s. And during that period, it was considered good luck. Today, it's associated with having commonly acknowledged alternate negative meaning, as in the policy, with this association with the Nazi Party. Through the policy process, the peer review, however, did not acknowledge or take into account any understanding of the history of the use of the name in this area and the context in which this road name exists today. So that's something I wanted to point out. My second point was, although the report really states that the word swastika, or the swastika symbol, is universally recognized as a hate symbol in Canada today, but in Puslinch Township, the street sign does not display the symbol. If there is a distinction between that, the peer review did not include it, and it only spoke to the symbol. So I'm not clear how that fits into the review. My final point was just about the information we have not really received from Canada Post. It seems a little bit unclear whether they're planning on changing the mailing address within the next 5 years or not. And I think this is quite relevant to what we're looking at today. The suggestion in regards to Canada Post changing just a portion of the community down there now doesn't actually match with the objective of street naming. So I want to know a little bit more about that component. And I'll leave my comment. Or I assume, Mr. Mayor, we're going to go around, or do you want some direction right now?
I'll go around at least a couple times. I may ask staff to just speak to the Canada Post component of your question, because that might come up from other members if they have anything to add.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So the street renaming work that was done, I believe in 2017, relating to some of the Guelph postal codes and addresses. And then from there, what took place was the council resolution in 2017 to request that Canada Post take a look at Moffat addresses, Cambridge, and additional Guelph ones that hadn't been addressed. So that project didn't go forward in 2017 for those additional addresses. And Canada Post followed up in 2021 with staff to confirm whether or not we were still interested in doing this work. Staff replied that we were, and they let us know that they were considering the initiative at that time, and they would follow up with staff for a preliminary meeting if and when they had the resources to do so. And staff have not heard anything since then. And as stated in the report and also in the additional questions coming from council, when staff reached out to Canada Post specifically regarding Swastika Trail, it was confirmed that should a renaming occur, Canada Post would update the Puslinch identifier for those affected properties at that time. So there was confirmation that those individuals wouldn't have to go through a second address change on that road should council choose to rename the road.
Okay. All right, Councilor Balmer.
Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor,
Mr.
I
Chair.
have a question of the speaker.
Sure.
Councilor Bailey, you indicated the name swastika was there at the early 1900s. On what basis do you gauge that information?
Actually, upstairs, I purchased the Adams Ale book written by a local resident, historian, I believe. And in there, there's documentation about it being named in the 1930s. And it talks about it's had that name before the 30s. So early 1900s to me is before the 30s.
Okay, fair enough. And do you know that Mr. Guzar in his deputation indicated that the name Swastika Trail was named 2 years after the Nazi regime came into power?
No, I don't know that's in Randy's, but I don't see how that's possible if it's documented as being before 1930.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, when it comes to dealing with things in the public sector, one thing I've learned over the years is it's the means that justify the ends. In other words, it's the thoroughness and care that we apply to the process that lends credibility to the decision at the end. So I do have a couple of questions I just want to pass by staff before I make my comments. Let's see, there was some concerns raised in some of the written correspondence that we received regarding the financial compensation plan. And I just wanted to confirm from staff that, as I recall, the policy itself requires that the finances be secured prior to the name being changed. And I just want to make sure that that is the case, that those finances, those monies have been secured to ensure that anybody who's signed up for the compensation plan will receive their compensation appropriately.
Thank you, Councillor Balmer. Yes, and again, it's based on an estimate at the time we collected. So the public on the street still have the opportunity to submit those response forms. I believe the deadline is the 30th of September. So again, we have collected funds, but it's an estimate at this point.
But as we go forward, once all those requests are in, the funds will be topped up to secure the program prior to the name being changed. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect. So that concern has been addressed. The other question I had relates to is it possible to separate the decision to rename the road from the decision of what the new name should be? And I ask that because I see it as, if council chooses to change the name, we are essentially wiping the slate clean. And it would seem to me that it would be fair then to enable the owner of the road to have access to the process of naming an unnamed street. And I just wonder, do we have to do the two things at once, or can we split them up to enable the owner of the road to at least have that option to choose a name that does meet the policy?
Councillor Balmer, from a process perspective, I think that is achievable to split them up, being mindful of course, the notice requirements in the Municipal Act for council's intent to pass a bylaw.
So it would be possible then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay, that would be helpful. You know, as we've heard some concerns about taking action on private property. I guess when I look at the staff report, it speaks about the importance of maintaining consistency among road names, and even references, I think it was section 4.4, which identifies that grouping names by theme makes it easier for emergency services to find a road. And yet we've heard from Canada Post that if we choose to change the name today, they will apply a Puslinch address and a Puslinch postal code to a short stretch of road in an area that is otherwise a Cambridge address and Cambridge postal code. Yet the report is silent on the effect that creating this municipal address island could have on municipal services, and or whether it's even in keeping with the intent of section 4.4 regarding clustering names and clustering addresses by theme, or in this case by municipality. So this to me creates a bit of an unknown, a concern that has gone unaddressed through the process. And while I certainly agree that it's quite clear that the name does not comply with the policy, and as a result needs to be changed. At the same time, it is clear that we have the authority to change the name of a road on private property. I'm always aware of the fact that we need, whenever we have an authority to do something, especially on private property, I want to make sure we act as in a judicious manner so that we don't cause any undue harm. And as we know from the additional information we received before the meeting, Canada Post is now interested in changing the addresses, all of the Cambridge and Moffat addresses, to be postage addresses. And we are in a situation where the applicant could have chosen to wait for that process, but opted to apply prior to that process. If we change the name today as requested, we're creating a municipal address island, which has not been, I don't think, properly explored. So for me, this leaves me with essentially two options. One is we defer the decision to enable staff to address that potential issues that could come up from creating a municipal address island. Or the second would be to approve the name change, but tie the timing of that name change to align with the changes proposed by Canada Post to avoid the creation of a municipal address island altogether. In either case, it would fulfill my test of a complete and thorough and careful process that would help lend credibility to the outcome. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Goida. Oh.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Schools, I'd like.
I have questions of the speaker specifically.
Okay, Councillor Schools.
Council Boomer, do you know that Mr. Wazinski in his deputation indicated that if the name has to be changed, he would prefer be changed to Holly Trail?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what to what trail?
Holly Trail. Holly Trail. Holly
Well,
Trail.
And that's if council, so if that complies with the policy, then I wouldn't have it. That would go through the same process that we're doing now. We now have a policy and a process in place for a road owner to apply for the name of an unnamed road. So I'm not in a position today to speak to any possibilities that the owner might have. I was simply asking, would it be possible to make the process available to the owner as if it was an unnamed road, if we chose to change the name? That's all. I wasn't speaking to any potential choices he may have suggested.
And I'm suggesting we do not have to have a wait for it. He's already suggested the name. I've asked staff to check with that, and you can ask staff whether or not that's acceptable. Second question, with respect to islands of mail areas, we do have islands that exist within our township already, and that's one of the reasons why back in 2017, I asked that the post office through council put together a more comprehensive plan to create one whole address. My particular area is part of Guelph. There's also a particular area which is Arkle. There's a separate area which is, I believe, Moffat. There's a separate area which is Marston. So I think we do have islands here, and it's all a question of having it unified at a particular time and to create a small enclave. I don't believe it'll be causing any more, let's put it this way, any more grief than we have now. That's my comment, Mayor.
Thank you. If I could respond, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I think to compare a 250-meter stretch of roads of houses to a defined hamlet of Arkle or Morriston or the entire west side of the township that has the address Cambridge as islands or Moffat, these are these are large geographic areas that have those distinctions, not a tiny little island inside another. And it's not that I'm suggesting we do not change the name. At no point did I suggest that we do not change the name. It's just that the timing of doing so, and the outcome would be the same of both of my suggestions, is simply that to make sure that we confirm that there isn't a problem. You and I are both speculating, one, that there might be a problem, which is my position, and you are suggesting there would not be a problem. I'm only asking that we check that one final box before we take the last step.
Okay, thank you,
Or
Councillor Bonner.
tie the two
Councillor
together.
Goyda?
Thank you.
Councillor Goyda?
Thank you. I just want to start by sincerely thanking all the members of our community that came to speak today and who took the time to provide a written delegation. I know that there are strong feelings on either side of this discussion, and I have been reading and listening and carefully considering each point of view. And as I've been reading and listening, I've put some thoughts down, and Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I'd like to just read through the thoughts that I have been writing as I've been listening and reading. I don't take it lightly that the name of the road swastika means very different things to different groups of people, and each are equally important to consider. To some, this is a holy symbol, and to others, it's a symbol of evil. And I think when a symbol represents such opposite concepts to different groups of people, conflict is bound to arise. And I feel this conflict in our community. One of the things that was brought up specifically in some of the written delegations was the idea of education. I do agree that education is a key piece to break down these barriers and this division that exists. And I do believe that there are opportunities to do that regardless of what the decision and the outcome is today. In regards to my own position on how to proceed, we have a very clear policy on municipal street naming. It's a policy that was developed with the input of all members of this council through several rounds of drafts in an open and public council meeting before everyone on this council voted in favor of adopting it in its current form. For me, I cannot ignore the emotional impact and pain that this symbol continues to bring many people in our community and throughout the country as a whole. This word originated as a symbol of divinity and spirituality, but unthinkable historical events have changed the context, and context can change the meaning of a word. The report before us states the swastika is arguably the most universally recognizable hate symbol in Canada. I think we live in a world today that has grown in consciousness, awareness, sensitivity, and reconciliation. And I feel strongly that as municipal government representatives, that we have a responsibility and we play a pivotal role in combating racism and hate and creating a welcoming and inclusive community. The application to change the name of the road before us is a decision before us today. Staff have worked diligently to ensure the requirement of a complete application has been fulfilled and have done their due diligence to verify the application passes the required tests by a qualified third party. The policy is crystal clear on the criteria of what is not permitted as an appropriate street name. And this street name checks off not one, but two of those criteria that are not permitted. I have to reiterate that this council unanimously approved adopting the street naming policy that is actively in place today. And I stand behind the decision that was made by this council, and I therefore have to stand behind the policy that's in place.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spose?
Yes, I'm not going to go into the details of why this is a hate symbol. I think it's very well explained by a number of deputants, and Councillor Goyda did an excellent job. I will go and focus on the policy aspect. We had 4 meetings where we went through the development of the policy line by line, and it culminated into this policy. And as Councillor Goyda has reminded us, it was a unanimous agreement to the policy. I feel that if we do not adhere to the policy and we somehow try to sneak out from under the policy, the people who want to apply for a name change will have the right to go to court and have the decision overturned. I think it's very important to realize that this is a policy. We have made it, we have approved it, and the staff report provides a rationale why the name should be changed. So accordingly, I will be moving that we support it, and also I'll be moving that we change the name to a name proposed by the road owner. Paul, in his deputation, suggested that give me the opportunity to name the road, and in his deputation, he specifically said Holly Trail. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Spools. I hear there's a lot of weight on, it was unanimously approved. I still have challenges with the policy, but as my role as mayor, once it's adopted, I have to support it. But there's a few components that I feel it wasn't addressed well, and that was the historical religious component, which, as you've all heard here, that is protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. You hear a lot about the symbol. We don't have the symbol down there. We have the word. I think there's a difference there. The symbol is displayed in our larger community, likely annually, as the religion that still uses the symbol will display it when it's the appropriate time in the year. And even though our policy is adopted, I agree with you, Councillor Spools, there gives some opportunity for the private landowner if they want to challenge it. I equate it similarly to, we can't develop a policy that takes away the mayor's freedom of speech, because that's protected on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So I have concerns that we've crossed a boundary that maybe we shouldn't have. Did I vote in favor of the policy? I did. But it doesn't mean I don't have convictions about it. And so for me, when, as municipal governance and any governance, we already have an impact on people's private properties. Good example is property tax. If you don't pay your property tax, we can take your property from you. So we have a lot of power over private property. And I have challenges, as Councillor Balmer mentioned, of when it's appropriate to use those. And I'm not insinuating that Councillor Balmer is saying that this is an inappropriate one. I'm just drawing the analogy. Because this is a private road, it's private property, and the federal government has not banned the symbol or the word because of it's protected maybe at arm's length through Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I cannot support changing the name. However, I do support, well, I'll back up. If it's the decision of council, then I obviously will support the decision of council. I agree that the landowners shall have a important role in changing the name. I don't know if it needs to be part of the resolution, but it is their property, and if they can work with staff to come up with a compliant name within the policy, that's, I think, very appropriate. And I think that was all. So I would like Ms. Hoyt Fox to read the resolution that was provided in the agenda, because Councillor Spools, I'm not sure we need to change it as much as you have proposed. So I'd just like to hear it in its entirety and see if it will allow the homeowner, or sorry, the property owner to be the primary lead on the renaming. So Ms. Hoyt Fox, if you could read that resolution, please.
That report ADM 2022-051 entitled Municipal Renaming Request for Swastika Trail be received, and that council approve the renaming request for Swastika Trail, and that council rename Swastika Trail to a name suggested in the report or an alternative name if desired by council, and that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw to rename Swastika Trail and to give notice of council's intention to rename the street for the October 19th, 2022 council meeting.
So Councillor Spools, do you want to amend that resolution so that it specifically mentions engaging the private landowner. And I guess I'll have to go back to, we'll have to discuss Councillor Balmer's concern about the timing and the islands. So
Mr. Mayor, are you suggesting we leave it open-ended rather than Holly Trail as in the written deputation proposed, done by Mr. Wazinski?
I'm just a little concerned. I don't know if staff have vetted that name. I don't know if there's a Holly's cleaning business down there. Oh, Miss White Fox has her hand. I just don't know if it's made it through the process or not. Councillor Spillis, that's why I was a little concerned with the.
Mr. Mayor, I did ask that question as soon as I read that item of staff, and staff could answer that question if you indulge me to ask staff that question.
Certainly, Councillor Sapoulis. So staff did receive the written deputation from Mr. Wazinski on Friday. So we did have time to review and to circulate the proposed name to county emergency services, et cetera. There's no issue with the name Holly Trail. It's not a duplicate within the county. It likely fits within the theme of the area. And so there was no concerns with that name.
Mr. Mayor, you're frozen there.
It appears we've lost the mayor. Let's just pause for a moment.
A moment of reflection for the loss of the mayor.
Okay, he's back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
I'm sure
Mayor,
everybody.
Mr. Mayor, did you hear what our clerk mentioned?
I did not hear any of it, actually.
Okay, Ms. White Fox, would you please reiterate what you just said?
Certainly. So, Mr. Mayor, we did receive the written deputation from Mr. Wazinski last Friday. And so we had a chance to circulate it to the county and to our internal departments, and there's no concern with the name Holly Trail. It's not a duplicate within the county of Wellington.
Okay, yeah, then I'm comfortable leaving it specific as either it's already presented or how you proposed, Councillor Spools. So
Yes, I propose to amend the Dr. Swastika rename to a street suggestions report or alternative desired by council to specifically say the council renames Swastika Trail to Holly Trail as suggested by Mr. Wazinski in his deputation.
now I just want to address Councillor Balmer's concern about timing. Without getting into it too long, is there any appetite, Councillor Spillis, to leave it to staff to decide whether there's the window for the Canada Post change is going to be short enough that council's comfortable with it, so that alleviates this island concern, or how do you want to address that? I'll go to Councillor Balmer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm willing. Look, my concern is simply, it brought to mind we had a delegation from a Ms. Horvath back in 2017. She had concerns about deliveries and emergency services because the road, what appears to be a single road, had 3 names, and so I was sensitive to making sure that we don't create a problem. And I'm more than comfortable if staff are going to have to bring back a bylaw, that as long as that bylaw is accompanied by a discussion or a review or at least some review of this potential confusion, I think that's what we need to do for those who have raised concerns about having a confusion, and specifically because the policy itself speaks to avoiding confusing names that could cause confusion for first responders. I think it's section 4.4 even mentions it in the report about the policy avoiding confusion. So as long as we address it prior to the name change, I'm fine. And if that means bring it along with the bylaw at a next meeting, I'm okay with that. It's just about making sure we be as thorough as we can to ensure that decision is as sound as it can be and as safe as it can be.
Mr. CAO.
Yes, thank you. To respond to the questions raised by Councillor Balmer, just to reiterate that Canada Post indicated that they would adjust the postal code and the address to this if we are going to be going ahead, or if council is going to be going ahead and approving the name change. They didn't have a set time of when they would do it if nothing was done. So just to be, so council is aware that if it would be moved in the future, it would be to an undetermined date in the future. But to speak specifically to your question, we can definitely get some further clarification from them how they would address any potential concerns that you had with possible confusion. But to repeat what our clerk has indicated, this has already been approved by, okayed by emergency service and the county for not creating any conflicts with emergency services or anything. But we can for sure get a comment from Canada Post with regards to any potential conflict with shipping or concerns like that, and bring that to you with the bylaw for the next meeting.
If I could, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, I didn't see anywhere or hear anywhere in the report that the idea that this road would have its own postal code and municipal address was circulated. I'd read that the idea that the potential names were circulated to emergency services, but not the idea that it would be an island municipal address was circulated, because that wasn't even in the report. It was only came to council in the answers last night.
Well, I guess the question would be, emergency services, do they use the road name for their locating to respond, or postal codes? For us, in my world, it's the name, and we're never aware of the postal code or.
Okay, so it's easy to address then. When the issue was raised in 2017, staff prepared a simple report to address the concern, and I'm just looking for the similar process as it comes back with a bylaw, so that the issue that was raised in the questions, the answers we got last night, is addressed. That's all I'm looking for. So if it accompanies the bylaw to change the name, I'm fine with that.
Can you make that happen, Mr. CEO?
Absolutely.
All right. So Councillor Spoulos had move the resolution, correct? I don't know if we had a seconder.
Yes, I did.
Councillor Goody, you're going to second this one. All right, so it's on the table. The last one, approve the name change. Staff will come back with a bylaw addressing Councillor Bulmer's concerns about the island and whether there'll be emergency response / delivery concerns. Mr. or Councillor Spoulos?
I'd like to have a recorded vote, please.
I was going to call for it too. That's fine. All right, that means you go first now. So last comments though before, because it's a motion, everybody should have one more round of discussion on it. Councillor Bailey? You're muted, Councillor Bailey.
I would just like to have it read out so that we're clear on what the changes are here.
Okay, Ms. Whitefox.
That report ADM 2022-051 entitled Municipal Renaming Request for Swastika Trail be received, and that council approve the renaming request for Swastika Trail, and that council rename Swastika Trail to Holly Trail as suggested by Mr. Paul Wazinski in his deputation, subject to satisfactory review by staff, and that council direct staff to prepare a report and bylaw to rename Swastika Trail and to give notice of council's intention to rename the street for the October 19th, 2022 council meeting.
Just comments now, we're not voting. Just hold on, Mr. Councillor Bulmer, hang on. So it's just comments on that, and then we'll vote with a recorded vote once I go around one.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not clear on the timing of this. If we're waiting for some feedback still with Canada Post.
No, we're gonna approve changing the name, and staff's gonna report back on the island concern that Councillor Bulmer has. And you're just commenting on it if you have any other concerns, and then I'll call vote after I go around the horseshoe.
So no concerns with that.
All right, Councillor Bulmer.
Just if the resolution could include that the staff report addressing the municipal island issue be included in the resolution, that's comes back. It didn't explicitly say that. Yes, you got confirmation from CAO. Just make sure it's in the resolution, so I'd be more comfortable.
Councillor Spoulos, Comfortable with that?
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Spoulos.
Councillor Goida
I have no questions or comments. Thanks.
and Councillor Spoulos, you're the last.
I'm fine. Thank you.
So the recorded vote's going to start. It'll be Councillor Spoulos,
I'm in favor of the motion.
Councillor Bailey,
I'm in favor.
Councillor Goida. Oh, I went wrong. I'm all messed up. Councillor Balmer.
I'm not gone yet.
Councillor
I'm in
Spoulos
favor.
messed me up by doing the recorded vote, so it changed the
That's
order.
okay. I'm in favor.
And where am I at now? Councillor Goida,
I am in favor.
and I am not in favor. Okay, so that's carried. I need a 5-minute break, please. We'll reconvene at, let's say 11:41-ish. All right, welcome back from that quick recess. I'll do a roll call. Councillor Bailey,
Present.
Councillor Balmer,
Present.
Councillor Goida,
Present.
and Councillor Spoulos.
Present.
I believe we are on 8.1, public meetings. We have September 28th, 2022, which is tonight. We have a public information meeting held by electronic participation at 7 p.m. regarding the following. 2023 budget public information meeting. I thought it was user fees and bylaws. Do I have that right? Do I have the right agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, you're right. It is the proposed 2023 user fees and charges bylaw.
That's okay. All right. Next item is reports. I believe we are on to, let me pull it up, 9.3.1, right? Let me zoom in. Who's this? Miss White Fox. Shall we read the resolution first to get it on the table just to be procedurally proper?
Certainly. The council receives report ADM 2022-048 entitled Proposed 2023 Council Committee and Budget Meeting Schedule, and that council adopts the 2023 Council Committee and Budget Meeting Schedule attached as Schedule A to the report.
Let's get a mover and a seconder so we can discuss it. Councilor Spoulos, mover, seconded by Councilor Bailey. All right, any comments or questions? Councilor Bailey?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Councilor Balmer?
Nothing.
No. Councilor Goida?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
And Councilor Spoulos.
So I would just ask staff to check to make sure that we're not in conflict with any religious holidays. For instance, the municipal election right now is in conflict with Indian religious activities. So I'm not sure if that applies to the October 25th council meeting or any other religious holidays that we should be looking at to avoid conflict.
Okay. Are you suggesting that if they find a conflict for 23, they amend the
Well, they
schedule?
come back, I'm suggesting they come back and ask and advise us of the potential conflict.
Okay. I'm glad to see this schedule. It's important to me so I can plan my life for the next year. One thing that came out of the questions provided to staff that will be attached in the minutes is the going back to in person. And there's some challenges with, I believe, like hybrid meetings and things like that. Do we have to do a hybrid meeting to get back into person, Mr. Schwendinger? I feel there's a bit of desire from the council members to start attending back in person. I know I would like to do more than just one meeting in person for this last term of council, but I keep reading about the hybrid and the challenges. Do we have to do a hybrid or can we just go back to the way it was pre-COVID?
The recommendation that we're receiving, given the space that we have here, hybrid is what is recommended. We can definitely have council and staff here, but in terms of having public present as well, that's where our space constraints are. And some other municipalities are taking the same approach where they're providing the opportunity for the public to still fully participate without any space limitations or not allowing people in the meeting because of capacity reached or something like that. So what we could set up is having the horseshoe set up with council and senior staff, and then all the other participants in the meeting, the delegations, the public concerned with reports, they could still be virtual. And that's a successful approach that's been implemented elsewhere. I think we have to recognize the technology constraints and the space constraints we have with the existing council chambers. But we could definitely do that for the remaining portion of council. We just have to finalize a few technical details so we don't get feedback and things like that. But yeah, we can definitely work that out.
So I assume there's probably costs for hardware and IT type components. If that is prohibitively expensive or the timeline's not going to work, is there an appetite to set up a temporary chamber at the PCC in the Archie McRobbie room, and then that way we'd be able to have the spacing? I know it's not ideal for council to be working on folding tables. It's not as I'm tired. I'm sorry. It's not as nice to look at. But if it means that we can keep the separation more for public and staff and things like that, even if is that something you could consider if this hybrid meeting is too difficult to implement for the last few meetings of this term of council?
Yeah, that's an option we're looking at, and what the costing would be for the AV equipment over there, because it is here where there isn't the filming equipment or anything like that. So we need to see what we could get set up there and what the costing would be for that. But we're evaluating that option as well. Yes.
Okay, so when you say the filming equipment, was that still focusing on a hybrid, or was that just so that we can record it and post it to YouTube afterwards? Is that kind of the challenge?
It's both actually, so that we can still remain a virtual meeting and to post afterwards.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're on it. I don't know if we need to go around the horseshoe, but I'd like you, I feel maybe I'll go around, just if there's a desire for council to try to do at least the last few meetings in person. I'll just start with Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see us trying to get back in person. I think there's a lot of value in that. So forward to seeing how we can make that work.
Councillor Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I don't see anything in the Municipal Act that says our meetings need to be recorded and put up on YouTube. So I'm not concerned if we go to the PCC where people can attend in person, that needs to be a top priority. But I understand why it's a nice to have. Same thing with hybrid. If we're in a space that has sufficient room, we don't necessarily have to be able to go hybrid for that either. I'm struggling to see where the constraints are. If we're renting out the hall for groups of 200 people to attend, why can't we have a council meeting with 10 people attending in the PCC without worrying about all this other stuff? Perhaps when you report back, you could speak to the need or the requirement for this hybrid or recording if we're moving to being in person at the PCC.
Yes, we'll address those questions.
Thank you so much. That'd be helpful.
Councillor Goyda.
Yeah, I definitely am wanting to get back to in-person meetings, and I think part of why that's important is so that members of the community can participate in person. So although I like the idea of the hybrid, what I'm hearing is the hybrid model would allow council and staff to be present at a council meeting, and that delegations and things like that would happen virtually. But I do think it's important that members of our community can also attend in person to present to council. I think that allows us to connect more with our community. And I think there are, I think although all of us have now become quite familiar with how to navigate these Zoom things and these virtual meetings, there are a lot of people who haven't in our community. And I think they're all anxious as well to be able to have the opportunity to be able to come in person and present in person rather than through a computer that they have difficulty connecting with.
Thank you, Councillor Greta. Councillor Spools?
Yes, I would agree with having a full in-person meeting. With respect to recording of meetings, I think it's also important to realize that not all people can attend the meetings, and a lot of them, if there's an issue that's of particular importance to them, they go on the web and they look at the meeting. I've had residents ask, "Well, what happened?" I said, "Well, you can go to this site and pick up that, and you get it firsthand rather than me trying to explain it to you secondhand." So I think that's important that we do have the flexibility of recording, whether it's ends up a hybrid or in public. I think the fact that we are having day meetings, not all people can make day meetings.
I agree. I think the recording is very important. I've used it to reference back to what council's decisions were, because sometimes, you remember something and it's maybe a little different. And if it's recorded, it's easily accessible through YouTube. And I believe that's an asset to staff as well. But as for the very near future, if the recording is the component that's going to prevent us from doing the last couple or 3 meetings in person, I'd have a palette for, possibly a couple meetings not being recorded, as long as we were still working towards reinstating that process. So it's just very important to me. Councillor Bailey came on board with us and really didn't get to experience the in-person much at all. I think maybe 1 or 2. And I'd like to be in person with Councillor Bulmer for the last few meetings before he moves on to the Great White North. It's always wonderful watching them bump into things and knock things over. So it's a little bit of humor after a little bit of a serious tone. So Mr. CAO has heard those comments, and hopefully we can work towards that.
Mr. Mayor, just one comment. I'd like to have Council Bulmer's last meeting recorded for posterity.
Sorry, your internet cut out. I don't know if you're taking a jab.
Okay. I'd like to have Council Bulmer's last meeting recorded for posterity.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. All right. So I think we have the resolution to receive that. Ms. White Fox, we have a mover and a seconder.
And yes, Mr. Chair, and just for clarification, are we looking to approve it today, or are we looking to bring it back with respect to Councillor Sapoulis's request to look at religious holidays?
I feel it can be approved, and if there's a concern with religious holidays, we can amend it on the fly. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Spools?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a move by Councillor Sapoulis, second by Councillor Bailey, and it's to receive the report and that Council adopts the 2023 Council Committee and Budget Meeting Schedule attached as Schedule A as presented.
All right, all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
Councillor Bulmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goyna,
In favor.
Councillor Spools.
In favor.
Thank you. All right. 9.3.2, Mr. Bunn. I'll get Ms. White Fox to read the resolution so we have it on the table first.
The council received report ADM 2022-049 entitled Township of Plymouth Annual Accessibility Status Report for information.
Can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Bailey and second by Councillor Spools. All right, Mr. Bunn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you, Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this report is to provide council with an annual status update on the progress and the measures taken to implement the town's 2022 to 2026 multi-year accessibility plan as required under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Perfect. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bunn. I just was wondering if you would be able to comment on the accessibility of our parks, specifically Borum Park, since we've had a lot of resident concerns about this, and what the standards would be. And I guess we're looking up to 2025, so within the next few years.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I know Mr. Fowler had addressed a similar question at the recent Recreation Committee meeting. I'm not sure if the Mr. Feller is available to speak to that in respect to our parks in particular, or it
Mr.
looks like
Scales
Glenn, perhaps.
has his hand up. Yeah, Mr. CAO.
Sure, I believe there was a written response. We want to make sure we got the correct information determination from our design team on that project. Maybe Ms. Hoyt-Fox, if I could ask you to refer to the written response that we received and that was sent out to council members with the addendum. It provides the exact wording from our design engineer with regards to the accessibility questions.
Certainly, I can read that. I'm just making sure I have the right question here. So this is with respect to the, do our parks have to be AODA compliant for all areas, correct?
No, forum specifically.
Okay. Okay, so we have concerns expressed about Bourne Park. So it says the response that we received is our understanding that AODA was introduced in 2005 with the goal of a completely accessible Ontario by the year 2025. Park facilities in PCC and Bourne will comply with the Act. Park spaces will also comply with the Integrated Accessibility Standards, part of the AODA Act, which includes the design standards for the built environment, being the trails, parks, outdoor play areas, and spaces, etc.
Maybe I'm going to help out here. Mr. Fowler, can you explain to me what you discussed with me about the accessibility of the proposed new Vorum Park? Do you remember that conversation?
Yes, I do. So the accessibility that we discussed pertained around the actual playground structure itself. So the components that would be integrated into the new structure would be AODA compliant up to 30%, such as swings, activity centers. The actual path and surface that the play structure would be on would be 100% AODA compliant. So that would either entail the rubber type surface for the play area, and whether it be an asphalt, concrete, or stone dust trail leading from the road to the play structure would be 100% compliant through AODA.
Does that help, Councillor Bailey?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So I'm just going to feed on that a little bit because I had asked the question, and maybe it wasn't worded well, but I said, does 100% of the park have to be AODA? And what I was trying to get at, we don't have to make the green spaces all AODA. So we don't have to pave the whole park. So I'm wondering, like, you know, we're allowed to have green spaces or a ditch in a park that's, you know, that's municipal infrastructure, because there isn't a requirement that 100% of the property has to be AODA. Is that a fair statement?
Yes,
correct.
it is.
Sorry, Mr. CEO.
Yes, that's correct.
So, okay, perfect. So when we upgrade the parks, those components become, they fall under the AODA and we have to make them accessible. So that's good for clarification. Okay. Councilor Bomer.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I didn't hear the picnic shelter being mentioned in that list. But so there won't be a 4-inch step up, or if there is a step up for the picnic shelter, there will be an associated ramp, so it's accessible as well.
That's correct, Councilor Bulmer. The identified structure for the shade area will be at grade level. So basically coming off the walking path to the structure will be at grade, and there won't be any steps or components like that that would inhibit any type of wheelchair or disability use.
Super. Thank you so much.
Councilor Goyda.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to sort of add on to the discussion that Councillor Bailey and you, Mayor Sealy, have brought up about Bourne Park. And I think you mostly have answered this question, but my question was again about the open green space. And I'm hearing that the whole green space does not need to be accessible, but my question is, I guess, the access to the green space. Is there any kind of requirement on the accessibility of the access to the green space? And the reason I'm asking that is because at Bourne Park, there is one section that I believe is accessible to to enter the green space, but there's only that one section. And is there any requirement that there has to be accessibility sort of from one area, for example, the playground, to the green space that is accessible? Do we know the answer to that?
Yes, I can clarify, Councillor Goida. So currently now, due to, if we were to implement another type of play structure, picnic area, you know, a ball diamond on the green space, we would be compliant to have to provide a 100% accessible trail to that fixture.
Okay.
Being considered green space, there's not necessarily a reason to get to, say, the far side of the park. So at this time, we're not required to have 100% accessible trail.
Okay, perfect. That answers my
I can-
question exactly.
Just to clarify too, there is going to be an upgrade once the new play structure is in to allow 100% accessibility to the basketball court, which is currently there, which will probably consist of a stone dust trail.
Oh, awesome. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Spools?
No, all the questions that have been answered already, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Councillor Ballmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
and Councillor Spools.
In favor.
Okay, 9.3.3. We're down to 3. Who is this? Presented by Ms. White Fox. You want to read the resolution, Ms. White Fox, please?
Certainly, that report ADM 2022-050 entitled Sunrise Therapeutic Riding and Learning Center Site Plan Control Agreement Request regarding interest on security deposit check be received for information.
Can I move her, please? Councillor Spools, second by Councillor Bailey. Councillor Spools, do you want to just propose your motion? We'll just talk
Yes,
about that right away.
I've written a motion basically saying, whereas council received report ADM 2022-50 Sunrise Therapeutic Riding and Learning Center site, and whereas due to the not-for-profit nature of Sunrise offering services that benefit the township and its residents, and whereas unique situation, resolved the council direct staff to provide the Sunrise the earned interest on the security deposit funds at the time of the security deposit is returned to Sunrise.
Okay, a seconder there, please, Councillor Bailey. Excellent. Okay, comments, Councillor Bailey.
I noticed in the council questions and responses, there was an option. So instead of returning the funds, putting it into a type of grant or putting it toward a grant option. When I inquired, Sunrise has not applied for a grant this year, but I'm curious, and this is a question for Director of Finance. And with the calculations same, so you would have to figure out the same calculations depending which way we go?
Yes, based on the other option provided to council, it would be a similar type of calculation in order to determine the approximate interest earned on the deposit and use that basis for the amount of the grant that would be paid out.
Okay, and is there a benefit one way or the other? I get to the applicant, like to Sunrise, what, you know, which direction we choose?
I think either, oh, sorry, go ahead, Merci.
Yeah, I was going to say, Councillor Bailey, maybe it would be better posed to ask staff if they have a preference to keep it cleaner for, you know, future
Well,
consideration. So would they prefer it to be a calculation?
suggest, yeah.
Sorry. My internet's-
Yeah,
Am
so
I
I guess
done?
what does staff suggest? And I wondered about the timing of it.
I think as long as the council resolution is quite specific in terms of why we're doing this in this case, I think either option works for staff in term as I think you nailed it, Councillor Bailey. The calculation will be the same either way.
Okay. Then I'm happy supporting the motion that Councillor Sapoulis has suggested.
Councillor Spools?
I was going to probe more on your suggestion, Councillor Bailey, but if you're suggesting you are in favor of my motion, then I'll refrain for any more discussion.
Yeah, with staff saying they're not partial either way, if they get the interest back, then they can always apply for a grant and double dip and we can help them out some more. So anyways, I'm supportive of the motion, so I'll call a vote on it. So Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I am in favor.
Councillor Spools?
In favor.
I'm in favor. That's carried. Welcome back, Councillor Balmer, Councillor Goya.
Thank you.
All right, we're on 9.3.5. And that, Ms. Hoyfoss, read that resolution, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, sorry, just bear with me for a second. I'm just looking for it in my agenda package here.
No problem.
So it's that report ADM 2022-052 entitled Municipal Renaming Request for Timberwalk Trail be received.
All right. Yeah, mover for that,
I'll move
please.
that.
Oh, hold on. I don't know if we have Councillor Goyda back yet. And
She's
seconder,
declared.
Councillor. Oh, she's on. Oh, right. I forgot she did too. Right. Councillor Spools, second in that.
Yes.
All right. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I guess I just think our choice was in front of us from staff.
Sorry, you cut out. I didn't quite hear what you said there. What do you want from staff?
I just wanted to be clear from staff what our choice is in front of us.
For the name, the different name?
Know what our options are with the request. We can choose. But I just want to be clear what our options are in front of us.
Your options are to rename the road or leave it as is. Is that right, Ms. Whitefox?
Yes, I can just summarize a little bit. So the application was put forward based on the application type for section 9 of the policy, which describes that the name does not meet the naming standards of the policy, and that they're looking to have it changed specifically because they feel that it deliberately advertises for an existing commercial business or industry. So I guess there's two decisions here for council. The first is it a type of application that should be processed under section 8 or section 9 of the policy? That's significant because of the cost that would apply to the requester. So if the name is determined to comply with the policy under section 8, then the applicant is responsible for the full cost of the name change. If it is determined that it does not comply with the naming standards under section 9, then that is a split between the township and the requester in terms of payment. So I think that's the first decision. Staff are recommending that it be treated and processed under section 8 of the policy. Staff are of the opinion that it does not deliberately intend to advertise for Timberworks. And then the second question of council or decision of council would be, is council looking to rename the street or not? And there's some suggestions laid out in the staff report that have been recommended by our peer reviewer, who is Mary Tivey.
Okay. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, so I guess my comments are because staff has indicated that the name does not deliberately advertise an existing business, I don't see a need for renaming it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Balmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure we get on record. I would compliment Ms. Tivey for her excellent peer review of this question. It's nice to get some background on the properties and have a wholesome look at it. So I really appreciate that. And I must admit, I quite like the name as it is. I think it serves as an homage to the potential builder. And at the same time, I look at the concerns raised by the homeowner on the street. Regardless of the compensation, these things do require time and work and effort to deal with. So I'm perfectly comfortable with keep the name the same, and quite like it. Thank you.
Councillor Spillis?
Yes, I'm of two minds. I can go either way on this one, but Timberwalk Trail to me is a good name. I was going to suggest that we do change it, give the owner of the road the opportunity to select a name that was proposed by Mayor Tibby. I'm okay either way. So if we want to retain it, I'm fine with that too.
I'm comfortable leaving it the name that it is. So Ms. Whitefire, sounds like there's consensus for that. You capture that in the resolution that we decide not to rename it, and I'll ask for a vote.
Yes, so the motion is to receive the report, and the council does not approve the renaming request and retains the name Timberwalk Trail.
Okay, all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
I'm in favor.
Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Spillis,
In favor.
and I'm in favor too, so that's carried. Right. Welcome back, Councillor Goyda. All right, Ms. Whitefire, you have a resolution for 9.3.6 when you're ready.
That report ADM 2022-053 entitled Heritage Structure Demolition Request be received. And that the Heritage Committee be requested to review the demolition request and provide council with a recommendation on whether to permit the demolition or proceed with designating the property under the Ontario Heritage Act. And further, that the feedback provided by the Heritage Committee be brought back to the October 19th council meeting for council's final consideration.
Okay, can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Spillis, second by Councillor Goyda. All right, Councillor Bailey, comments, questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a comment. I found the address of this very unclear in a few different spots. I saw it as 82 Queen Street. I see it as 83 Queen Street, and I see it as 83 Brock, and it doesn't specify if it's south or north. So I'm wondering if we can just make sure all of that gets sorted out so that we're all clear on what the property is that we're looking at. But I would support sending it to the Heritage Committee.
Okay. All right, Councillor Balmer.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's very important. I'm concerned we're going to see more of these in the future. I think it's very important it goes to Heritage Committee, and I would like to propose one friendly amendment to the resolution. The current resolution specifies a date at which it comes back to council for decision. There is a possibility that if it goes to the Heritage Committee and they discuss it, there may be a need to move on something prior to the next regularly scheduled meeting. And I'd like to, so just if we could leave off the date and just recommend that it comes back for council, that leaves it open in case there's a need for council to make a decision sooner rather than later on the matter.
Okay. Councillor Goyda.
I have no questions. I am in favor of the resolution that's before us. And I'm happy with the amendment that Councillor Balmer has made.
Councillor Spillis.
Yes, I'm happy with the amendment. I would also suggest that any future reports of this nature include a photograph of the particular property in play, because as Councillor Bailey indicated, it was first report was mislabeled, so I was trying to Google it, I couldn't find it, type of thing, and then the second time around it was properly labeled. I could find I found it on Google and I went out and had a look at it. So just to have a photograph to dispel any confusion.
All right. Ms. Whitefox or staff, any concerns with Councillor Balmer's amendment or clarification needed?
No, I've made that amendment, and staff are, just for council's awareness. We are keeping in mind the 60-day clock that's on these types of applications from the time that we get the intent to demo. So even if it does have to come back to the October 19th meeting, I believe our calculation shows that we're still in good shape, but I've amended the resolution so we don't have a specific council meeting date.
Perfect. Okay. All right. All in favor, Councillor Bailey,
I'm in favor.
Councillor Bowmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
Councillor Schools.
In favor.
All right. We're just cooking along. 9.3.7 is Ms. Whitefox report. I'll have you read the resolution, please.
That report ADM 2022-054 entitled Procedural Bylaw First Draft be received for information.
You gonna move her for that, please? Councillor Spillis, second by Councillor Bailey. All right. Questions or comments? Councillor Bailey.
I have about 24 comments. So I've put them in writing and I just figured I would send them through to staff if that's appropriate.
It is. If you have them ahead of time, next time, you could submit them to the Mr. CAO and then they'd be included on the addendum that we always add just prior to starting the meeting. Then they'd be captured in the public realm. So people will see, you know, what you're bringing forward. But I'm comfortable because we'll see another draft. So we'll just make sure those items are captured in the minutes for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Bowmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please chastise me as well. I submitted several comments ahead of time as comments on this. I can characterize a few of them for you today if you like. Many of them. I noted that the bylaw is, I think, longer than the previous one, and perhaps I noted several places where clauses have been repeated or similar things said in multiple places, and I just pointed out a few opportunities perhaps for clarifications on some of the things. So I submitted those as well. I figured that it was more than we could go through in a meeting, so I submitted them as separate comments, and whether they get addressed or not, at least I've submitted them, as did Councillor Bailey. So please feel free to chastise me for doing the same thing.
I was not chastising Councillor Bailey. I just, you know, when councillors do good work, you know, if there's not a public document, you know, that can't prove that you're doing the good work. So it's nice to have a record of it so that they see what we're accomplishing. So
thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Councillor Goida.
Thank you. I don't have any questions today. I did provide some questions, which I think are captured in the addendum that was added today. And I'm sure that if they're able to be, they'll be addressed in the next draft. So I have no questions.
All right, okay, Councillor Spillis.
I too passed the questions on early and they're included in the questions of staff. So I'll wait the second draft and see how it's addressed and any reasons why any of the points were not addressed.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
Councillor Bowmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
and Councillor Spillis.
Mr. Mayor, we not want to say the council direct staff to review and incorporate all the comments received, because all it says is council direct staff as follows.
I apologize. I just assumed they would have captured that, but I'll ask Ms. Whitefox if she captured that.
I do, Mr. Chair. I have to incorporate council's comments into the next draft.
Sorry about that, Councillor Spillis. All right. I believe we're on to 9.4.1. Do you have a resolution, Ms. Whitefox?
I do, and I also have county planning staff in the attendee section as well, looking to present whenever you're ready.
Yep. Oh, there's Zachary right there.
Yes, and the motion is that council receives the County of Wellington Planning Recommendation Report regarding the zoning bylaw amendment application D14/STU. This is with respect to the property 4363 Wellington Road 35, and that council give 3 readings to bylaw number 2022-040, being a bylaw to amend the township's zoning bylaw.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Spillis, second by Councillor Bailey. All right. Is it Zach? Is he presenting?
think if Courtney could bring over Joanna, Joanna is actually going to present this one.
There you are. Welcome, Joanna, whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm pleased to be here today to present the recommendation report for zoning amendment application D14 STU. The subject property for this amendment is 4363 Wellington Road 35, and the zoning bylaw amendment is to address the conditions of consent application B11120, which was granted by provisional approval by the County of Wellington Land Division Committee on February 11th, 2021. This application is for a surplus farm dwelling severance. The severed farm parcel, dwelling parcel, is 1.5 hectares and contains a dwelling and a shed, and the retained agricultural parcel is 33.2 hectares and contains a barn, a drive shed, and a shed. Ultimately, the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the retained agricultural portion of the subject lands to prohibit a residential dwelling in order to meet the provincial and official plan policy requirements, as well as to prohibit livestock to meet the minimum distance separation formula requirements for the existing agricultural structures of the barn, the shed, and the drive shed. This application was circulated to statutory agencies by the township on October 13th, 2021, and a public meeting was held on November 24th, 2021, at which no one from the public spoke. At the public meeting, the agent for the application gave a presentation on the proposal, and at the meeting, the agent indicated that the shed on site was currently being used to house 2 mules and a horse, and it was the owner's intent to move the livestock in mid-2022. There was some discussion at council in terms of how this could be addressed, and ultimately through discussion with the agent after the public meeting, the course of action was to return with the recommendation report once the livestock were confirmed to be moved off the property. The applicant has confirmed on September 14th, 2022 through correspondence that the livestock have been removed from this property. This application was presented to the Township's Planning and Development Advisory Committee meeting held on July 13th in 2021, and the committee commented that they supported the application. Agencies and staff have also reviewed the proposal and no objections have been received. The Ministry of Transportation supported the consent and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and commented that a permit for access to the residence or severed parcel and one field entrance to the retained parcel will be permitted. In further discussion with MTO in September 2022, it was confirmed that for any future changes, so changes to buildings or entrances to the parcels on the severed or retained parcels, MTO permits are required at that point. The County of Wellington Roads Department had no comments. Grand River Conservation Authority had no objections. Both Township Fire and Rescue Services and GM Blue Plan, who's the township engineer, had no concerns. The township hydrologist had no comments. The township ecologist commented that the proposed amendment does not conflict with existing natural heritage policy and noted that any future development or site alteration may need to be assessed for impacts through an EIS or similar process. And finally, Source Water Wellington commented that the property is not located within a vulnerable area, so the application can be screened out and doesn't require a Section 59 notice under the Clean Water Act. There were no verbal or written comments received from the public on this application. Planning staff have attached a draft amending bylaw for council's review, which would rezone the property from an agricultural A zone to an agricultural site-specific zone, A104. And this amendment would prohibit a residential dwelling on the subject lands and would also prohibit the use of the existing agricultural buildings to house livestock. So in conclusion, planning staff are satisfied that this proposal is generally in conformity with the provincial policy statement and provincial growth plan and maintains the intent and purpose of the County of Wellington official plan and township zoning bylaw, provided livestock are restricted from all existing agricultural buildings and residential uses are prohibited on the retained agricultural parcel. And that concludes my presentation.
Wow, good job. Okay, any questions? Councillor Bailey.
Just maybe a clarification question. So for the retained agricultural parcel, is there a driveway access at this time? Do we know?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that particular property does, I believe, have an existing field access off of the county road. The township does have a condition on the consent application regarding the access onto the property as well in general. So there's one existing for the severed parcel and then a field access for the retained, but that condition still exists on the consent.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Councillor Bulmer. No questions? Okay, Councillor Goida,
No, I have no questions.
Councillor Schools?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, great job. All in favor? Councillor Bailey?
I'm in favor.
Councillor Palmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goida?
In favor.
Councillor Schools?
In favor.
Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you.
Have a good day. All right. We are on to correspondence. 10.1. Ms. Whitefox, you have a resolution when you're ready?
The council receives correspondence item 10.1 regarding Environmental Registry of Ontario approval to amend a municipality's official plan, that being official plan amendment 119 from the County of Wellington for information.
Get a mover, please.
I'll move.
Councillor Balmer, seconded by Councillor Lewis. Any questions? Councillor Bailey?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Balmer?
In favor. No questions.
Okay, I'll go back. Councillor Bailey in favor?
In favor, yes.
Councillor Goida?
In favor, no questions.
Councillor Schools?
In favor, no questions.
All right, Ms. Whitefox, 10.2, please.
The council received correspondence item 10.2 regarding the Ontario Ministry of Infrastructure Accelerated High-Speed Internet Program slide deck for information.
You gonna move her, please? Councillor Schools, seconded by Councillor Goida.
Sure.
Any questions from anyone? No, all right, all in favor, Councillor Bailey,
I'm in favor.
Councillor Balmer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida, almost did the wrong one,
In favor.
and Councillor Schools.
In favor.
Council reports. I spoke of it briefly. It's not really a report, but we have the garden club potluck, and this year was the first year that Mr. Fowler helped facilitate the garden club have their gardens located on the PCC grounds, and they have their, I forget, junior idiot, and I'm not sure what the titles are. There's 3 different ones. Anyways, they look great all year. I thought they looked awesome, and I thank Mr. Fowler for working with the garden club members and making that happen. So it was a nice addition to the grounds there. Other than that, I don't believe I have anything else. I'm going to open up to council. Do you have any council reports? Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I think it was at our September 14th meeting, or no, it was before then, maybe the 12th. I had attended the PLCA meeting on the 14th of September, and we had a lot of conversation around the 2 council resolutions that them and trying to get some of their comments and suggestions regarding public lake access, and then the traveled road Bayview access down there. So just high level, I just wanted to let everyone know that, you know, there was a lot of discussion around the table. I was really encouraging them to get it down on paper. Any concerns they might have, any suggestions they might have. I did just get a, but in lieu of our heavy agenda, I haven't got around to looking at it, but what I'll do is be able to share the document that they've provided. And it was just around general consensus was that GRCA lands would be more appropriate to allow for public access. In the past, there were some grants available through GRCA that they were suggesting we could, or they could be looking into. The concerns around the traveled road access, parking, the fact that some residents have easements to use the access. And so the suggestion was to try to get some more of those details. And there was a lot of just discussion that some of the issues they were seeing down around the lake were because of COVID. And so, you know, hoping that some of that will ease off as we get out of there. Anyway, so I'll be forwarding on some more formal writing from them.
That kind of brings up some ideas. Mr. CAO, have we had any correspondence from MNRF about the docks that are immediately adjacent to our right of way? Have we had anything but come back yet?
Yes, we did. We received some correspondence back and then had a follow-up discussion with them. And basically the process, just to summarize it, that they do require approval. There isn't a approval on file for those. So the MNRF indicated that they do have the authority to have them removed. So under their policy, what they need to do is to provide, I forget if it's 60 days or 90 days notice that they're going to be removing them, to give the opportunity to the owner of them to have them removed. So that was already done. And given the timing of what was going to be happening, that notice would have been, mid to late October was when that time frame would have concluded. And that's when people would typically be removing them anyways in anticipation of the winter season. So what they did to address this issue was given that we don't know and there isn't a formal record of who actually owned the docks, they apparently provided written warning according to their policy, or written notice, I guess is a better word, of what the M&R requirements are, and that this is official notice so that they need to be compliant or they will be removed. So they're giving notice to them, to a number of the property owners around the area, so that if the docks reappear in the spring, then they already have the process that has been undertaken. That notice has already been given, not that they have to wait another 90 days in the spring. So they've done that in anticipation, so that if the docks do appear again, then they're in the position where they're able to take some action.
Okay. Further to that, has the OPP made any ground on the theft and vandalism of our signs down on the traveled road?
I'll defer to Ms. White Fox on that. She was dealing with that portion of the file.
The OPP officer did reach out to staff just earlier this week with an update, and we're looking to touch base on that. But again, likely there won't be a lot of information shared, just given that it is an active investigation.
Okay. And finally, Mr. CEO, has the GRCA indicated when they're going to come back with that report around the access and some of those components that you and I discussed with them? I don't know when that was, a few weeks ago.
They have not indicated date when they are going to be coming back with their detailed report. They did send me a message saying, here's what there is, a follow-up to our discussion. Here's the factors that they're taking into consideration. They're going to look into it more detail and get back to us. No, they did not confirm a time frame of when we would get that back.
Okay, so they're still working on it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Bailey?
Can I ask a follow-up of staff? I think in one of the resolutions, it was documented that we were going to reach out to the city of Cambridge as well to, help with some of this. Has that happened? And if not, are there plans to actually follow through on that?
What we are doing is we're waiting to see what we get from the GRCA, because that might impact how this goes ahead. So we're that's still a to-do item, but we'll get to that once we have some more concrete information from the GRCA.
Okay. And then I'm just not sure, back to the deeded access, where that comes in and how that plays in with MNRF. Maybe it's water versus land. But I'm just wondering if staff or how we're dealing with the deeded access, or if we need to be requesting it from residents in a more, or what the animals.
Sorry, Councillor Bailey, you're broken up a little bit there. I'm not sure what you mean by clarification of the deeded access. Could you just rephrase that for me?
I think in past conversations, something came up about what's in, what is written into the deeds of the residents that live down there, and what we may not, what township may not be privy to. So we were wondering what was in the deeds.
I think
I'm just not showing out to the public. Have we asked them, or I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm at a loss. I don't recall looking at deeds of other private property. I know we got confirmation of the township's ownership entitled to the waterfront, but I'm at a loss. Maybe help me and remind me.
We don't
what,
have any deeded access across our right of way. There's probably a private property issue because I believe a lot of them have deeded access across the owner of Holly Trail, along with other properties that he owns. So that would be a private or a civil thing. We wouldn't, as far as I know, we have encroachment agreements. Maybe the people at the PLCA meeting are kind of flipping those two terms, because on the traveled road there's plenty of things that were encroaching on our right of ways. But Mr. CAO, to our knowledge, don't have any deeded access granted to homeowners on our right of ways.
That's correct. And we're still in the process of working on those encroachment issues.
Okay, that helps me. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Bulmer?
No questions.
Councillor Sapoulos? I did it again. Goida.
Okay, no questions, thanks.
And Councillor Sapoulos.
Yeah, just a follow-up question with respect to access to the lake. Have you, Mr. Seal, had a chance to ask McClintock if they are willing to negotiate with us on providing access to residents to their property?
I'll ask Ms. Hoyt Fox to update on that. She was the one that undertook that work.
Yes, we did reach out to them, I believe, on 2 occasions. I'd have to go back and look, but from my recollection, we haven't received a response yet. But I'd have to go back and just double check the file. But we have contacted them.
Great, thank you.
In fairness, they had a tragic fire they're probably dealing with right now, so might not be at the top of their priority list, but we'll wait. Okay, so that was to receive that for information, correct, Ms. White Fox?
Yes, so it's just to receive the council member and mayor updates for information.
Okay. All in favor, Councillor Bailey?
In favor, thank you.
Councillor Bulmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goida?
In favor.
Councillor Sapoulos?
In favor.
All right, Ms. White Fox, bylaws.
That the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw number 2022-040 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 23-18 as amended, being the zoning bylaw of the township of Puslinch with respect to the application number D14-STU.
Can I get a mover for that, please?
I'll move.
Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Bulmer. All in favor, Councillor Bailey?
In favor.
Councillor Bulmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goida?
In favor.
Councillor Sapoulos?
In favor.
No closed session? Any business arising from the closed session that we didn't have?
Every time.
Thank you, Mr. Budd. Even though we're taking your office away from you potentially. Any notice of motion? Any new business?
Just one.
Councillor Sapoulos?
Yes, those of us who've subscribed to the MTO newsletter regarding the Morrison bypass would have received a notification of their next phase of starting to work on the mid-block interchange. And I was wondering if staff could bring that forward to the next council meeting for our information review.
Yes, and what I can also tell you is we've had a project update with them. We're in the process of scheduling another one, and we're requesting that, as per previous council requests, that they come back and give an update to council as well.
Great, thank you.
The contractor did a presentation at the county roads department, so I was hoping we would see it appear on our agenda. So Mr. CAO, I'm assuming it would be the same individual coming to present to Puslinch Council.
I can't guarantee it's the same individual, but someone from the same firm involved with the project, yes.
And were you copied on that recent correspondence that came through in the last day or two from the MTO? Did you see it? I got one.
I've actually received a few of them about the project, so I haven't gone through them yet. I don't know if it's the same one that you're referring to.
Okay, I'll flip it to you just to make sure you have it. And
Okay.
then maybe you can include it in the agenda if you feel it necessary. Okay. Announcements. So I guess I alluded to it already earlier in the meeting. We had our retired fire chief pass away, Fire Chief Doug Smith. And Councillor Bummer, you may be able to remind me, I feel that he was one of the founding members of the fire department.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
And that, what year was that? Was that 68 or so? Something like that?
Yes, somewhere in the end of the 60s. I wasn't around that long.
Yeah,
Yes.
so founding member of our fire department, so brought that service to our community with other members, and I'd hate to say this, but might be one of the last remaining members of the founding members of the fire department. And he served as chief for a number of years. He was my chief when I was there, so he provided me a lot of opportunity to change my life and affect my family. The great individuals in the community, they formed or they spearheaded the COPS committee. I'm not sure if many of you remember that. They were kind of an advocacy group for traffic concerns and speeding, and the whole Smith family has been an integral part of Puslinch, along with many, many other families in our community. That's what makes Puslinch so great. So it's a sad loss, and he'll be missed. And I'll add some humor to a sad point, but I will miss him sleeping in council chambers during our meetings. Always
Mr. Chair,
interesting.
I appreciate you mentioning that he was fire chief, I think, for about 10 years at least. And he was also on the planning advisory committee in addition to serving on the COPS committee. So he did have a broad general interest in the well-being of the community.
Yeah, so. Councilor Spools, I saw your hand up there.
Yes, a question of our staff. Is there a collection going up for the chief?
I passed the information on to our current fire chief, and he was going to be reviewing that internally within the department. I could definitely pass that along if you're interested with that. I know with regards to respect for this individual, in accordance with the township policy, we've lowered the flag to half-mast as well, because that's identified in there, so we can pay some respect to him for all his contributions too. But I will look into the matter of donations. If the fire association, the fire department is, then others can have the opportunity to do so as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Would the corporation be able to send a arrangement for the funeral in recognition of the service, or would it just be from the fire department side?
Sorry, go ahead, Mrs.
Sorry,
Singh.
Mr. Schwendiger. So we do have budget amounts in our budget just for in-memory donations. And so we'll facilitate with the finance department as well as it relates to a township contribution for this matter.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? No. We don't need a resolution for any of that, right, Ms. Whitefox?
No, I've captured it under the announcement section.
Confirmatory bylaw, please.
That the following bylaw be read as taken 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2022-041 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Puslinch at its meeting held on the 28th day of September 2022.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Goida, seconded by Councillor Bailey. All in favor, Councillor Bailey?
In favor?
Councillor Ballmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goida?
In favor.
Councillor Spools?
In favor.
And adjournment, please.
The council hereby adjourns at 12:47 p.m.
Mover, please. Councillor Ballmer, seconded by Councillor Bailey. All in favor, Councillor Bailey?
In
She
favor.
nodded. Councillor Ballmer?
In favor.
Councillor Goida?
In favor.
And Councillor Spools?
In favor.
Great work
Mr.
today, everyone.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for you.
Oh, shoot.
Are you going to wear a tie tonight?
Wow, John, likely, because I'm going to be at the potluck presenting the award to Marianne Honattle, and then I'll scoot home. So yes, I will be.
I don't want to put you out, so if you're going to wear one, I'll wear one, but if you're not going to wear one.
Because I'm going to Mary Ann's thing, I want to, look the part, so I'll definitely have a tie on. I'm not going to change, that's for sure. I might wear this for the rest of the day, to be honest with you.
Sounds good.
I will see everybody at 7 o'clock.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good work, team.